Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I want to talk about the definition essay. And as you can see in the slide, it's called Arguments of Definition because, as I've said in class over and over and over, everything's an argument. And on the subtitle for the slide is a hot dog a sandwich. This is, of course, one of the key arguments essential to Western civilization. And it is, I think, an example of why a definition essay makes a lot of sense and why a definition essay is important. As I said, definitions are important to daily life. When is a species endangered determines how and when you get to build your house, how and where farmers get to farm, and how we get the food to the grocery store. Over the past 5 years, the argument about what is marriage has been a political hot button issue, and it has, made some people very happy. It has made some people upset and angry. It has provoked court case after court case. And it's not just recently. Um, way back in the day, there was this idea of a common law marriage versus a sacramental marriage versus a legal go to the courthouse and get married marriage. We're arguing about what is climate change, what are the conditions, what constitutes it. We've spent a lot of the past year talking about artificial intelligence and AI generated work, but we've had that for 10, 12 years with smart speakers. And if we want to go back even further, when I was a kid, we had genuine imitation leather. Go figure. And just because I want to keep a theme running through this, at least for the first two slides, are boneless chicken wings just chicken nuggets in disguise? We have to define the boneless chicken wing. We have to define the chicken nugget. We have to define what these things are. There are a lot of kinds of definition. There are these four that I've got in the first slide. The formal definition is that dictionary definition that we have here. Operational, we'll get to in the next slide. You can define by example. You can also offer negative definitions. And we're going to add to this list a little bit later in the presentation as well. Formal definition, as I said, is the dictionary definition. You place the person or the thing or the idea, you place the noun in its class, and you demonstrate how the noun differs from others in its class. That's the formal definition. It's true for adjectives and adverbs as well. But you're giving this thing and you're putting it in a class and you're defining how it differs from others in its class. Quick example. Both of these things constitute a pen. One of them is a tactical pen. The cartridge is likely pressured so that you can write upside down and you can write on grease and you can write underwater. It is thick and heavy, probably made out of titanium and probably made to be indestructible. It has a carbide tip on the end, on the non-writing end, so that you can break out of your car window should you somehow need to. On the other side, you have a fountain pen. The ink inside is not pressurized, it writes through capillary action. It is not made out of titanium to be indestructible. In fact, you can see that the clip is torn off of it. It is made out of some form of plastic. One of these is a relatively recent invention, the tactical pen. The fountain pen has been around for about 140 years. These are both pens. But if we try to define a pen, we're going to have to put them in the certain classes. And then we're showing how the tactical pen differs from the fountain pen and how there's probably a dozen classes in between depending on function and depending on style and depending on materials. We have to make sure that as we go through here, we are giving people enough to distinguish between the fountain pen and the tactical pen. Operational definitions. What does it do? What conditions create it? Is Sleeping Beauty, waking Sleeping Beauty with a kiss, sexual harassment? I have to define sexual harassment. What are the conditions that create it? Does Sleeping Beauty want the kiss? Has she given consent? How do we make all of these things work? Okay. The idea of the operational definition. I know that this is a shovel because I'm digging dirt with it. That's what it does. However, does it meet the formal definition of a shovel? Does it have the blade? Does it have the handle? Or did conditions create my using some other chunk of metal as the shovel and I'm defining it as a shovel operationally, even though it doesn't fit a formal definition of a shovel? We can give examples. For baseball, Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame has all sorts of statistics. It has all sorts of qualities associated with it. There are members of the Hall of Fame now, and we compare, for example, Joe Mauer on the slide here with other players in the Hall of Fame. We compare them with catchers in the Hall of Fame. And then we try to illustrate how Joe Mauer possesses similar qualities, similar properties to other people in the Hall of Fame, and specifically to other catchers in the Hall of Fame. So I'm going to list the individual members of the Hall of Fame who are catchers, not all of them, but the prominent ones, and I'm going to talk about Joe Mauer, whether he meets that example. And who or what can be in that category. There are some rules for the Hall of Fame. You have to have played 10 years. You have to have done all sorts of things. You have to be voted on by the Baseball Writers Association of America. You have to get a certain percentage of the vote to stay on the ballot for the 10 years. All of these things are part of this definition by example. What are the examples of a Hall of Famer? And then how does whatever we're talking about meet those definitions? In this case, Joe Mauer. Negative definitions. Negative definitions are contrasts. They're not comparison. I'm defining something by showing what it's not. So, for example, a colorful background and a tree with leaves and a cat playing a banjo cannot be frightening. However, a tree with no leaves, surrounded by ravens or crows and bats, and a black cat without a banjo can be scary. What it is not. It is lacking things, therefore it is not scary. Okay, or it is lacking things, therefore it is not happy. You are going to contrast, not compare if you do a negative definition. Analysis is breaking things down into its constituent parts. We have feathers, we have a bill, we have webbed feet, we have the desire to be in water. And the characteristics are pretty simple. We have this idea of it walks like a duck, it swims like a duck, it flies like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. We break things down into their parts, and sometimes we go just by the characteristics. So both the white fowl on the slide and the multicolored fowl on the slide constitute ducks, even though they don't necessarily look the same on, you know, when one thinks about the duck. By analysis and by the characteristics, we're going to define both of these as ducks. Finally, there's analogies. Analogies are fairly simple. It's like this thing, but it's not identical to it. Way back in the day, the ACT, the SAT tests all had a bunch of analogies on them. A banana is to monkey as a trap is to a mouse, a carrot is to a mouse, a cat is to a mouse, a piece of cheese is to mouse. Whatever sort of thing, you just made all of these analogies, and you were saying it's like this thing, but it's not identical to it. Cheese is not identical to a banana. The monkey and the mouse are not identical, but the cheese feeds the mouse. It's seen in stories as the favorite mouse food, and the banana is seen in stories as the favorite monkey food. Remember that you're probably going to begin with a tentative claim, and you probably should start with the formal or operational. I think those two would be easier, then move on to the negative and the examples. The definition is going to have to be broad enough to encompass a wide range and not just one single specific situation. And I think the tentative is the most important here. The definition, and you're going to see this on another slide, is likely to go through 3 or 4 drafts. So in the next presentation, you'll be looking at how the draft for a definition will get layered as you think about objections to it and as you think about limitations of the original definition. Consider as many of the pertinent cases as you can. The page numbers here refer to everything's an argument. And that definition is going to take a good paragraph or a page to really flesh out. And then you're going to start showing why your definition is the valid thing. You're going to start making the argument after that. So, is it a clear example of something? Or does it clearly fall out of the example of other things so that it can't be these things? Does it contain elements of two closely related things, and you're probably going to have to create a new class for this thing? Does it meet some conditions but not all, and so therefore you have to explain it? Does it defy and require a new definition? I think I've already covered that. All of those things are part of matching your claim to the definition. So you can think about, is it clearly inside the class? Is it clearly outside? Or do you have to do some mixing and matching to make this work? And the assignment's set up so that I think you almost have to mix and match to make things work. And again, I want to go back to the beginning. I believe that everything's an argument. And I believe that an argument of definition is extremely important because if the problem is not clearly defined, no solution can be proposed. And if that's the case, we're not dealing with counter arguments and refutations and getting to the crux of the matter and refuting the crux of the part. We're not even at the point of contradiction where we're saying, yes, it is, no, it isn't. We're back to name calling and attacking the person, and we're a long way from addressing the substance. If we can't define something, we're not creating a situation where a solution can be proposed. As always, all borrowed images and quoted text were used for educational purposes. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm just a adjunct professor trying to make his way in the world. Hope all of you have a good day. Hope to see you all in class next class period.